Right, again, good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining, and despite the countless hours of preparation and planning that's gone into today, I still haven't been able to get my webcam working, so I apologise for having to share insights into my home office. But again, thank you everybody for joining. Welcome to the next webinar in Contino's CloudFest series, Finding Your Why, Ensuring Successful Cloud Migration in the Enterprise. We're certainly aiming for this to be more of a conversation rather than a presentation, aiming about 35 to 40 minutes, and then leave 15 minutes for Q&A. So please, if anybody has any questions, please feel free to post them into the questions pane of your GoToWebinar control panel, and then we'll answer all of your questions at the end. Please also be aware that everyone who's registered for the webinar today will receive these slides, and you'll also receive a copy of the recording, a link to the recording, just in case you need some re-inspiration. So thanks again for joining, and without further ado, let's get into it. Introducing a little bit about our hosts today that'll be sharing their insights. First co-presenter is yours truly. I've been involved in a number of enterprise migration engagements with National Australia Bank, LG and Petronas as a few examples. They all had various flavours and different whys, but there certainly were some common themes. Heavily regulated industries, diverse ranges of obstacles, lots of internal bureaucracy and cultural resistance, the full spectrum of cloud knowledge from none to lots, and some they thought they had lots but didn't really. And for those of you joining us today across different geographies, I'm one of the many unfortunate unwashed Victorians tolerating the life of lockdown again. So again, thank you. And on a more positive note, our other presenter today is Zubin Bowman.
Thanks, AV. So my name's Zubin Bowman, Principal Consultant at Contino. I've been with Contino for over a year and a few months. My background is in the infrastructure and app development space. I've been in the IT industry for 20 plus years. And been fortunate enough to be involved in several large-scale enterprise migrations into public cloud involving thousands of systems. Like Andrew, I am Victorian and tolerating the second phase of lockdown. But unlike Andrew, I do like donuts, and it's one of my my little things on the side. So thanks, AV.
Thank you very much, Zubin. Great to be alongside you today. Just very quickly, for those of you who may not be entirely familiar with Contino, just a quick introduction to who we are and why we think we're credible to be talking on this topic today. We're a born in the cloud consultancy driven by a mantra to deliver real and measurable value and transformation for our customers. We're coming at this topic with a very respectful but opinionated point of view, and that's certainly something we pride ourselves on. It's based on many successful deliveries of large enterprise migrations in heavily regulated industries and environments. We fought lots of battles on many fronts for those that had a vested interest in not seeing us succeed, but we've embraced a lot of challenges from internal cultural resistance and external competitive forces denouncing all things public cloud. So we've had a very good pedigree in proving what could be done by actually doing and delivering rather than lots and lots of documents and presentations. We've got offices in the UK and the US, and here in APAC, we've grown from just over 20 people in early 2018 to now being 150 plus. So there's a few of our local brands. And
so enough about us though, AV. I mean,
yes,
let's kick on, right?
Right.
I mean, we can point the guys to the websites and go from there, but let's dig in, I think.
Good call. So I wanted to start off our presentation today and frame it with this graphic and a bit of a quote from the president and CEO of a famous brand that I'm sure many of us have used many, many times over. And it certainly has a few parallels with what we're going to talk about today. Public cloud is a key enabler that drives value creation and advancement for the enterprise. And effective migrations are really a critical success factor as part of that enablement journey. Now, we don't want to oversimplify and set the wrong expectations, but highly successful migrations are absolutely achievable. There's a number of things you have to think about and prepare for, just like the journey from a Flintstones type car to a Jetsons type spaceship. Migrations shouldn't be seen as scary or one of those enterprise IT's challenges or failures that we hear too often about. You can spend countless months designing and engineering and documenting and redesigning and re-engineering and redocumenting to the nth degree. But when you push the button, will the engine fire? Will your new whiz-bang spaceship function and perform exactly the way you want it to? All that time and effort will not have been productive as it should be, and you will not have achieved the outcome you're chasing. So if you had your time over, would you take a different approach? And that's why understanding why the right migration approach is so important.
So public cloud is where we want to be. Migrations is the first step of getting there, and that's it. Is that as simple as that? You know, if it is, why are we not all there right now?
Great question, Zubin. There's two answers to that question, and that's yes and no. It's not just about technology on its own, and this is why the why is so important. And the statement at the top of that slide, it's pretty self-explanatory, but it's also quite profound. Cloud migration is a people-powered transformation journey, and again aimed at delivering real and measurable value for your organisation. We don't just want a migration to be seen as another IT black box project. That's a recipe for failure. Effective leaders will always ask why questions, and if you can't confidently provide the right answers to the why questions, where does that leave you? So, how do we start understanding our whys? And a key part of that is a real understanding that all parts of the business need to be working towards the same common goals. Now that seems pretty obvious and a common sense statement, but you'd be surprised how many times we've come across enterprises where this is missing. It's really important to have top-down and bottom-up alignment between your business strategy, your cloud strategy, and your migration strategy. Nearly all businesses will have their vision, their mission, their vision, their objectives, how they're going to drive value to shareholders, what their internal revenue and growth objectives are, how to drive costs down, all of those things. How is cloud going to empower and enable the enterprise to achieve those objectives? And then in another level, how is your migration strategy going to align and be part of that overarching cloud strategy and deliver on those outcomes that directly relate and contribute to the business achieving success? If everyone's off doing their own thing, if there's rogue factions within your enterprise, people operating in silos, not communicating why they're doing what they're doing and how it benefits the business, then how should anyone really expect anything other than dysfunction and misalignment? A lot of resource wastage, and that's a big problem, especially now when organizational budgets and especially IT budgets are being stretched and tested and questioned like never before. So once there is alignment on these things, then there will be clarity on your migration why. And I'll share an example. So one of our customers wanted to be seen as the market leader in their space and in their vertical and their market in terms of their migration to public cloud. They were already a bit behind their competitors, but just being along for the ride and keeping on par wasn't good enough. They wanted to be out in front. So they needed and wanted to move a lot of applications at speed and sustain that pace and momentum for a decent block of time. They rallied their teams behind a common cause. They started off small, they got some quick wins, then accelerated and scaled. And as success and value became increasingly visible and recognizable, everybody understood they were in the same boat together, rowing in the same direction at the same tempo, and everything became easier. So this is one example, but we have seen a number of different scenarios and compelling events across our customer landscape as to why organizations are motivated and compelled to migrate. Zubin, you've had some really good experiences here, so I'd ask you to share some of those with everybody now, please.
Yeah, of course. And you're right, AV. So the why is super important. It's the compelling event that drives the migration and becomes the idea and the backing that your organization can kind of point to and get behind and rally to as part of that transformation, that move into public cloud and the changes that come with it. So this event needs to inspire, needs to drive that the organization and get them to embrace activities for migration to allow them to adopt the public cloud, and it should be relatively self-describing as a result, just to allow everyone to get behind it. We've seen several really good reasons and common examples here as for why organizations have migrated, but doesn't necessarily need to align to yours, just as something to ponder and to look at. Commonly, data center end of life, hardware end of life, software licensing expiring, managed services contract renewals, capacity issues, almost the physical capex, parts of your IT infrastructure are common reasons to trigger a migration. At the other end of the scale, we've got the digital transformation strategy for the business being a major catalyst. And so, taking the overall business, not just the IT part of it, but the overall business to as part of this digital transformation and enabling digital transformation, the business model being transformed, so changing the way that services and products are packaged, changing the domain for the business, using new technology with existing products and services, or a cultural transformation. So, enabling a fail fast culture, or a culture that moves towards doing more lighthouse projects and experimenting and not being afraid to do so. We also see a large number of organisations wanting to, to simplify the way that they operate, to focus in on their core business, right? So IT for a long time has started to take up a lot more cycles and a lot more focus of organisations to operate, and migrating into the public cloud is one of these opportunities that organisations see and jump on to try and simplify that and remove some of that overhead and that those non-core parts of operating and giving it to another organisation to do and to look after. And so it allows them to focus on what they specialise on. Looking after hardware and patching is a distraction, and it's seen as a commodity. Similarly, there are organisations that see the public cloud as an opportunity for innovation and to change their speed to market and build a competitive advantage. They all recognise that IT is central to the way that their products and their services are delivered, and they want to use this new tech to be able to iterate quicker than their competitors, unlock new revenue streams and market segments quicker than what they can with traditional on-premises tools and methods. Got a desire to get better visibility into costs of IT, and this is an interesting one. It's moving into public cloud allows you to then get that really detailed cost breakdown for given you set up correctly for it for a particular application or business unit down to the to the real fine-grained degree, and this moves away from the approximations and guesswork where shared infrastructure and on-premises systems commonly have to are made and calculated. That granularity is very powerful and provides you that ability to then really attribute those costs to particular systems or services or customer segments and give you a much better visibility into the way that your IT budgets are being consumed. And then finally, we see the either new or particularly onerous security requirements or compliance or legislative requirements, such as PCI or APRA or HIPAA, requiring an uplift in capability or an overhead that is too high to maintain on premises and within your current traditional infrastructure. And so now that we've touched on the insights into the why and why it is so important to understand it, as well as some examples of it. I mean, Andrew, how should an organisation get ready to set themselves up for success and answer their why?
Thanks, Zubin. Really great question. And everybody's heard and seen the messaging around these 4 fundamental pillars that underpin an effective transformation. We're not going to dwell on this, but there are some really core elements and cross-checks that need to be part of your migration preparations and readiness. Are you confident that all the right people are aligned with the same outcome in mind? Do they know and understand their why? Are you confident that the right people, are you confident you have the right people with the right skills and the organisational support they need to migrate, operate and transform within your target cloud platform? Are you confident you've got an effective operating model in place once you have migrated? And are you confident that you've done effective due diligence to select the right technology enablers to achieve your why? So what's next? How have we seen organisations really understand their why and prepare for migration? Well, for fans of the Curiosity Show, I'm really glad you asked that question, and I've got somebody that's ready and raring to answer it for you.
Thanks, AV. Yeah, good question. Right, so we've got to a point where we're understanding the united reason for migration, aligning our business and cloud strategies, but that's it at this point, right? Like we haven't really got the, what those next steps are. Do you just dive straight in? But from our example, or sorry, from our experience, there is a foundational element that you should be looking to establish and set you up for success. There's certain aspects that will, the prevalence and the priority will change based on your particular why, but these that I'm just about to dive into are all key elements that you should have there in order to set yourself up for success for your migration journey. So firstly is getting the word out into the organization. So migration is going to be a big change, and it's not going to be just an IT-driven project. It's going to require involvement and buy-in and across the organisation to get involved and get behind it. Need to promote that. Need to get that out there. You need to get that why statement across IT and the rest of the business to understand the timelines, the drivers, and really start to get behind it. Moving into a cloud platform and doing the migration, it gives you an opportunity to uplift your operational model, right? And your operating model to take advantage of not just the migration activities and not just the new technology at hand, but it also allows you to change the way that you operate to better, faster, more efficient, and particularly if you're the why that you're working towards is driving organizational or process changes across the org. Thirdly, there's investing and promoting a cloud center of excellence, which I'm sure you've all heard about, and I'm sure you've all read several or so articles from various cloud vendors. The cloud center of excellence is that body of kind of people, that crack elite squad of your engineering folk that can lead the charge, not just on migration, but also be a cloud advocate. They can be the ones that push through and drive positive change into the organization, taking along that operational model change, taking along the new technology change, and really driving through into those areas where change is being resisted and there's a fear or an uncertainty around the migration itself. We find that education and training is key to success. We're moving to a new platform, you're moving to a new way of operating. It is different to what you would be used to and what an organization operates within, and that needs to get across to the technical and non-technical parts of your organization to make the most of it. There's complexities, there's challenges that will be found along the way during your migration, because you often uncover things that have been forgotten about or ignored when you start to pick apart an application or a service that's going to be migrated. Don't be afraid of setbacks. You've got to learn from them, and you've got to celebrate the success. We find establishing clear metrics that align to your why and publishing them into your organization that shows progress and shows the way that you're moving is an awesome way of continuing to gain momentum and to really get buy-in from across the org. This also means that you can use that to incentivize. This could be through gamification, having teams starting to compete for a day out at a laser tag or whatever that may be, or you could be doing it a more traditional way and having them as OKRs or KPIs, or even bonuses attached to them. Whatever is going to be working for your organization to help drive them forward and get them moving and push for this migration. Part of moving into a cloud platform, you'll see a level of energy being coming from particularly engineering parts of IT that will want to move forward and will be really happy with this change and keen to get involved in the new technology. And this is something that we see is key to capitalize on and to take advantage of. It's a transformational activity. You need to have these team members to be helping push the new technology and the new platform and the migration, and you want to help to publicize and these through game days or meetups or other activities to help build this momentum and keep this energy level rising. Finally, there is senior stakeholder engagement. That's a critical piece of getting your migration going, and this is something that I know that AV you're very passionate about, and you've used this to great success over the several migrations you've been involved in.
Yes, and it's certainly one of the most common reasons migrations don't succeed. It's not a technology or a delivery failure. It's not skill shortages. It's not even a pandemic. Well, pandemics are a bit disruptive. I think we've seen that, and more disruptive than we'd all like. But not having adequate executive ownership, buy-in, and mandate for a migration before it even starts is really putting your organisation on the back foot. If you can't show and explain to senior executives why migration is important to the business, that it will deliver real and measurable value, and why you are doing it the way you've chosen to do it, then why would they support it? And again, this correlates directly back to some of the themes we've touched on already today in terms of the top-down and bottom-up alignment between your business cloud and migration strategies, really aligning on why migration is important and why the chosen approach is right, and the importance of having an effective plan. And I can't emphasize enough the importance of communication at all levels, and it starts from the top. You've got to bring your team, your stakeholders, and your whole business community along on the journey with you. You've got to invest time to win hearts and minds. Your success will be their success as well as success for the business. So you've got to build that expectation, create that culture from the outset, and don't operate in isolation. If you expect everybody just to jump on board, no questions asked, well, many of us know how that's going to end up. People look to their leaders in the business and believe that if they aren't fully invested or bought in, then why should I be? So I'll get down off my soapbox now. This is clearly not the single magic silver bullet and panacea that solves everything. I'm pretty sure you'd agree with that, Zubin.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, an effective migration is multifaceted, right? So you need to have several of these foundations established to allow you to get that migration going and pop those champagne corks. It's not just picking one approach and then kicking off and getting there. And look, when organizations don't prepare to deal with those multiple aspects of a migration, we've seen several challenges that can be struck upon. And there are common stumbling blocks from trying to solve for everything before you start and being overly prescriptive and doing that, as you've mentioned in the intro, AV, trying to design from the get-go and redesigning and re-architecting. It ends up in an analysis paralysis. You end up spending a lot of time solving for edge cases and getting to perfect rather than being good enough. There's a benefit by taking a measured approach, iteratively delivering learn and improve by doing, and being pragmatic rather than going to the nth degree from day one. Second thing that we see that causes challenges and is very disheartening is replicating your on-premises footprint and your on-premises architecture into the cloud one-for-one, and operating as you would on premises within a public cloud platform. That's you miss so much of the value of the public cloud. You miss you don't take advantage of the opportunities that are there, and it significantly devalues the benefits being realized from a cloud migration. You want to take advantage. Like, this is a big change to the way that you operate. This is a big change and a big transformation for your organization. You want to take advantage of that and of that change during the migration to use that opportunity to revisit and reshape what has been taken for granted before as, this is the way it's always been type attitudes, and challenge that and improve. Running before you can crawl is also something that we see is quite common. That starting to load up a migration with tranches of hundreds of apps from day one. This is a change and a transformation of your organization that we've touched on several times. You need to start to approach it slowly. Get those, you're not just, this is not just a technology change. This is not just, you've got all these other challenges that you're trying to sort out, like adopting the cloud platform itself, getting stakeholder buy-in, managing teams who are like fearful of change or unwilling to. You don't want to bite off too much, right? Start small, iterate through, look for those simple targets, start moving to more challenging targets, be that technically or organizationally. It could be even targets that are more difficult because they're under more strict compliance or security or legislative requirements. Iterate through that. Continuing to operate in silos. Now, this is something that Contino as a whole is very passionate about. We like to move from a siloed style of delivery model and take advantage of the controls and boundaries provided through the public cloud platform to empower teams to become more cross-functional and product-led. DevOps delivery, so they can own the service from top to bottom and deliver better outcomes for your business. This is a great opportunity to do so, and something that we highly encourage. And this one sounds silly, but not having up-to-date picture of your estate is also a very common reason for failure or for hitting challenges and slowing down. You're basing your migrations on an out-of-date CMDB, or you've got incomplete hand-gathered data, or just old information. This will cause you pain when building a business case or performing the actual technical migration. Highly recommend investing in automation, tooling, and ensuring that you have the right information there to know what you're going to move, what it's going to cost, and how you're going to move it. And finally, cost overruns. We've heard this before, it's hit the headlines several times. This is often ignored initially because of the rush to get migrations underway and move things into the public cloud platform, and teams can act as a kid in a candy store and end up with a bit of a rude result. Moving from CapEx to OpEx requires changes within an organization to understand and adopt the change of how budgets and dollars are spent accordingly. And these typically occur when an organization hasn't recognized that as a need, and so they fail to implement tooling or training or processes to catch these kind of edge cases and prevent it from becoming a big issue before it does. A lot of information there. I know it's been a very short period of time. That look, AV, what have we said so far today? What are the key messages we want to leave everybody with?
Thanks, Zubin. And a key message we want to leave everybody today is that, yes, migrations can be challenging, but they don't have to be hard and overcomplicated. Really establishing and understanding your why, having alignment with your business cloud and migration strategies, and communicating. You can't over communicate, and there's countless studies. All the big boutique consultancies have got lots and lots of artifacts and documentation on the value of communication, and we absolutely subscribe to that view. It's really important to secure leadership buy-in, because without that, you are fighting an uphill battle the whole way. Internal competition for resources, business as usual arguments, all those types of things, really critical success factor. Avoiding analysis paralysis. Learn, iterate fast. Don't be afraid to make a mistake. Big green bold text on the left, pretty self-explanatory. Adopting cultural change, improving your ways of working is a big part of your migration why. Investing in your people, winning their hearts and minds. Dual delivery, upskilling, formal training, all really critical success factors. And picking the right partner. Pick a partner that's got the right experience in your market segment, in your vertical, that understands your why and will take you on your journey and be a safe pair of hands throughout. So hopefully Zubin and I have done a pretty reasonable job of sharing some of those insights with you. Again, we just want to leave you with some very, very simple messages. We don't want to overcomplicate things. We want to understand what good looks like and the end result you're striving for and work backwards. And, you know, after those pretty deeply philosophical sentiments, we've come to the end of our webinar. And so we'd really like to encourage and take some questions from the audience. So I'm just check and see if there's any questions been posted to this date. We haven't got any yet, but I will roll the dice and open up audio. We're certainly happy to take questions.
If anyone's game enough.
So everybody should be able to unmute themselves now. If you can't, please don't hesitate to put a question up in the question box. I mean,
alternative, if you'd prefer to do it in a bit more one-on-one, happy to be, you know, to reach out and to have a chat directly if that's also preferable. EULA.
This is Miles. I work for Delp. I've had you guys engaged to do a design for us through Merrick and a couple of the other techs. I just had a question. Sorry, I've been jumping in and out because unfortunately we're doing all the COVID response stuff too. So flat out, I could listen to drinking at the moment. With some of the, in the issue that I have realistically is being able to get in touch with the decision makers and the policy people above me in government, essentially, that do not have any technical background, to ensure that we're doing things timely. I guess, like, there's not really, it's a problem that I have been unable to resolve to this date. And I'm wondering whether or not, I mean, there's hacks I suppose I could do, but it's a matter of whether or not these people get engaged. But essentially, if we don't start our migration sooner rather than later, then we're going to run risks of legacy hardware that we're going to have to do other mitigation strategies as well. But trying to get that communication imparted to them is difficult, in the fact that I don't have any people being able to translate my speak through the channels, if you like. So I'm like essentially a sleepers architect / team lead, or infrastructure engineer and things. I have no one technically or any infrastructure technical ability above me that does those decisions. So I suppose the question is, any advice in terms of how to get that, the need to roll these projects out sooner rather than later, because there is a certain amount of time. I've been trying to express the fact that it does take a lot of time to get these things resolved. And if we don't start now, then our options diminish by the week.
Yeah, Miles, that's a really good question. Zubin, are you happy for me just to offer my perspective first, and then please chime in? Yeah, Miles, I totally understand where you're coming from there, and it's a pretty common scenario that we've been faced with before. Some advice I would offer is try and invest some time in understanding what the people above you, how they're being measured, how they're being KPI'd. So, you know, what are their objectives over the next 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, 24 months. Try and really understand and articulate, what's in it for them. If you can make it, if you're presented in such a way that it really ties back to, making them successful, giving them a win, giving them an opportunity to then also take up, up further to their superiors, then that's certainly a way that you're likely to get more attention and more active listening a lot quicker. If you're presenting a proposition that will deliver something for somebody in a different position that they can then use to, forward their agenda, achieve their objectives, achieve their KPIs, that will resonate.
Cool. No, I appreciate that. Yeah, that's definitely an avenue that I could try and pursue a little bit more. And I mean, look towards. I mean, I'm a new year. I don't know if it's a new position. I don't know who else on this. No, but things like we don't have a budget due to COVID until the end of September, so everything is it's those things as well with the government stuff. But yeah, I'll give it a shot. It's can't hurt. Thanks.
Yeah, look, I just wanted to add a couple of 2 cents in there. I mean, commonly we see, and look, I'm technical background as well. I use a technical argument to provide a reason for migrating or upgrading or evoking change, and that does hit a glass ceiling, right? You get to a point where it needs to then translate, as AV's mentioned, to a business outcome or a business driver, and so whether that's a KPI or a particular goal that's being looked at for that financial year or for that particular period of time, that's always great. The other kind of aspect is always dollars. As simple as that kind of sounds, it's what's the cost of inaction versus the cost of action, and pulling together a bit of a business case around we remain down this path. This is how much it's going to continue to cost us, or we wait until X. That will then result in a $10 million kind of cost or whatever that may be, versus sooner rather than later. Establishing what that return on investment looks like, et cetera, et cetera. So depending on how budgets are being identified, or depending on how spending occurs and that kind of thing, really trying to tease that apart, working at what the right messaging to get that action that you're after is key, and probably something that we could dive into a little bit more after this.
Yeah, cool. I appreciate that. Yeah, you're right. I mean, I have been sort of trying to raise that. Yeah, in terms of it's going to be done, 50% more the cost of migration in 2 years' time, when we have to buy into kit to basically get us across from what migration hasn't completed and end of life for our current sort of private cloud stuff. So yeah, no, thanks for that.
I mean, Miles, just as a further complementary point to what Zubin said, typically in public sector where there is that technology and even cloud illiteracy as you go higher up the management and leadership chain, it's largely comes down to a bit of a question on risk, right?
Yep.
Appetite for risk, and exactly as Zubin said, changing the inflection of that risk conversation to be the risk of not doing anything rather than the risk or the potential doom and gloom of doing something that people don't know a lot about, right? The fear of uncertainty, the bit of the fear of the unknown. This is out of their comfort zone. Well, let's not talk about that risk, because there are bigger risks, and the bigger risk is doing nothing. And here is what the possible consequences of that may be. And again, not necessarily glass half empty, but glass half full. Here are some opportunities if we do this. Here's where we can get better, deliver better service for our customers, increase business performance, increase morale and uplift our capability, all of those things. So it's trying to identify the conversation points that will elicit the right reactions and the right responses. And it's not always easy, but it's perseverance.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it's funny, a lot of the things you say, this actually gives me some sense of confidence, because I have been doing these actions and risk profiles and alerting things and positive sort of different things that we can maybe try and cut this solution around. We're actually at the point now where I'm at the point where I'm just doing some mitigation risk stuff, because there are, we're running into a time where we are going to have issues. So just trying to highlight that now as well. But yeah, hopefully we'll get this sorted. It's all the work in progress.
Good luck, and I'm sure if you need any help, Merrick, just give Merrick a call. I know he'll be able to continue to help you. He's been a great resource, I really appreciate it. And actually, having you guys on board for the cloud design, which is all I could get the funding for, was brilliant. It was really, really brilliant. So hats off to yourselves and your team, because I was very impressed with what we got done, and just want to get the final solution done now. Fantastic. Thanks, Miles. I really appreciate you joining today. Keen to hear from anybody else or any other questions, if there are any. And just to fill in while we try and minimise the awkward silence while everybody clambers for their unmute button, there are some public case studies on our website where we've done some successful migrations, and again, the why behind those have been a bit different. We're more than happy to talk people through those and share insights into those specific examples. Those are on our website. You'll also get a recording of the webinar when we wrap up today. So just a last opportunity for questions. Before we throw out to that, AV, just wanted to touch on, so those case studies particularly are for LG CNS, NAB, and Origin Energy. Yes, thank you, Zubin, and a good cross section of industry verticals there, and a good cross section of challenges that we've got some scars and some wins from, and we're very happy to share those learnings with whoever would like to listen. But if we haven't got any more questions, sorry, Zubs? You've still got a limp from some of those, right? My shoulders are a lot bigger and stronger than they used to be. So, but just before we put the bow on today, just a reminder, there are some more upcoming webinars in our Contino CloudFest series, and that's going to be the next one here in APAC is going to be hosted by one of our really experienced technical principals, Marwan Kanso. He's a lot cleverer and smarter than Zubin and I, so I really encourage you guys to join that webinar. He's going to follow on from some of today's themes, dive a lot deeper into how you go about executing your migration once you've chosen your approach. He's going to have plenty of tips and tricks, so that'll be a real cracker of a webinar from two highly experienced professionals. So put the 19th of August in your diaries. And on behalf of Zubin, myself, and the entire Contino team, thank you for everybody for attending, and we look forward to seeing you again. Thank you, everybody. Thank you very much. Cheers.